What is Model United Nations? A presentation by Midwest Model United Nations. While this is prepared by Midwest Model United Nations, we hope this will serve as an introduction to ModelUN or Model United Nations that you can apply anywhere. In a world where opinions and ideas are often shouted into a void through computer screens or articles, Model United Nations teaches something different. It asks that students bring those same opinions, ideas, and objectives into one room and come to a consensus, one on which everyone can agree upon. And that's what we strive to teach in Model United Nations. So how is ModelUN different from other types of activities students can be involved in for immersive education? At its core, ModelUN is much like it sounds. It simulates or models the real United Nations, where participants, student delegates, play a role of a UN member state. ModelUN gives students a new challenge, researching real-world international problems, solving those problems from the position of different United Nations member states throughout their ModelUN conferences. And how does it work? So these next steps are going to vary from conference to conference, but we tried to pick something that's going to be pretty universal across the board. So before a conference begins, conferences will announce their available member states, the committees that are going to be simulated, and the topics for those committees. All of this information and more of what we're going over can be usually found on the conference website. Next, schools will pick what member state they're going to represent. This can vary on why they're picking it. They want to know how many students are going to fit on that member state. What committees is that member state being represented in? Oftentimes, they want to ally it to particular things going on in the world or something that they really want to highlight in a course. Conferences will prepare supplemental background guides. This is something to give to the students and to give to the faculty advisors to show this is what we will be discussing at our conference. While the committees and the topics for committees are announced much earlier on, the background guides are an in-depth review that are beginning research items for students and faculty. Next, the schools will prepare. As mentioned earlier, it might be a class. Many ModelUN teams are comprised of classes, but other universities treat it as an academic team, an elective, a extracurricular type activity such as a club. It really all depends on what best supplements your students, your university, and your situation. Also before conference, schools will submit position papers. They show the conference and their fellow delegates how their member state wants to approach a topic. These items are often graded for awards, and they're an interesting way to write, where the students are writing on behalf of their member state. All of this information is presented to all delegates and participants prior to the conference. Continuing, when the conference begins, schools arrive at conference, oftentimes checking into a hotel, then coming to register and picking up registration materials such as placards or lanyards to identify the students and the countries they're representing. There's a good break of time in between, and then new delegate or rules training are often offered. While many websites that host conferences such as our own have new delegate and rules training provided on our website, we also often provide an in-person training before the conference officially begins. Following that training comes opening ceremonies. It's a welcome to conference and generally has a guest speaker, someone who's going to talk about some of the items we have bringing up and how international relations really applies to everyone. It's a really exciting time and an opportunity for an educational experience beyond the conference itself for the students. Next, we roll right into committee sessions. Before conference even begins, you would have been provided the schedule for the conference, so students and faculty will know how to set aside time in their day. Once students are in committee sessions, our staff are going to introduce themselves and explain a little bit about what's going to happen and provide any general inquiries. And from there on out, it is facilitating the will of the body. That means it is the delegates' opportunity to make the committee go as they see fit. Typically, there's going to be opening speeches, selection of a topic order, back and forth on what's called informal and formal session throughout the days, and mixed into that is the next following, the writing process. Writing at a conference is very different from writing pre-conference. Everything has to be created at the conference. Eventually, delegates will go into voting procedure, then closing ceremonies and awards. While that is a very abridged version, each conference works a little bit differently, but they still offer the unique hands-on experience. Students don't get to know what's going to happen. They can go in with one idea and everything can suddenly change. So what skills are students using, improving, and applying with ModelUN? Why do we want to have our students participate in this type of event as opposed to something else? And to be clear, ModelUN offers a unique experience like no other academic opportunity. Firstly, in their research. Students are given many opportunities to research and show their knowledge in the classroom on exams and essays, presentations, and group projects. The different experience ModelUN offers, though, is that students are going to be placed in a room with their knowledge and solutions amongst a group of individuals who may have zero to limited understanding of those propositions, and they could even completely disagree with them. Students have to find a way to explain their own UN member state's position and ideas to all of these different individuals in a way others in the room will be able to find favorable. This is something that will prepare students for their post-college life, being able to walk into a room and tell the same thing in 19 different ways because there's 19 different people in the room and they all need to get the same information. This type of applied research causes students to think on their feet and challenges their own understanding of many topics and issues. Do they really know the material inside and out? Can they explain it to everybody in the room? This is something that happens throughout a ModelUN conference. Next is public speaking. ModelUN provides for what many see as the traditional public speaking opportunities in what is referred to as our formal sessions. Participants are allowed a specific amount of time to give an often prepared speech in front of the entire committee room on whatever may be being discussed, what they hope will be discussed, and there are opportunities to show their knowledge of rules of procedure and procedural-based speaking as well. The other side of public speaking, though, that ModelUN offers is that of which happens in what is known as our informal sessions. During informal, participants have to find a way to captivate their peers, to listen to their ideas, create a plan of action on how the room will approach the topic. They also have to advocate for the ideas of others and find ways to show that they want to hear from every other participant in the room while still remaining prominent. Typically, this is something that they are going to be heavily looked at when awards are considered for students and delegation teams. It's really interesting to see someone for the first time walk into a group of people and figure out how they are going to lead while keeping everyone engaged. This type of practice doesn't happen in the classroom as often, where they all are working on the same objective, but to remain prominent, all of them all have to give equal input. Writing. What combines debate, quick thinking, recollection of hundreds of international documents and organizations, and consensus building is the writing of a ModelUN working paper. The photo on this slide looks like much of the writing process. Everyone has their laptop out and everyone's discussing what's going to come up in the document. Although delegates write position papers prior to the arrival of conference that are often graded for awards, more writing happens at the conference. And like ModelUN at Midwest, we don't allow pre-written resolutions. Participants at ModelUN conferences learn how UN resolutions and reports are written and have to use the same format for placing their own ideas into action within the mandate of the room they are operating in. So while it is the will of the body throughout the conference and the delegates choose what is going to happen next, there's a rigorous editing process that happens between the delegates and the dais staff, the chairs, the legals, and the rapporteurs, who are going to look at the paper and make sure it makes sense and fits in with the mandate of the committee that they are working in. It's never our objective to say no to an idea, But we want to point students in the direction of how could something practically be done, while still allowing them to do whatever it is they're trying to achieve. Another skill, applying diplomatic interactions. Unlike many other public speaking-based competitions, such as debate, ModelUN doesn't want to only see arguments a participant can present, but are they doing these arguments in a diplomatic fashion? Participants aim to achieve a room-wide consensus, ideally creating a solution in the form of a written resolution that everyone in the committee has been able to contribute to, and it is agreement on how the international community should handle a topic. It takes much more than just strong speaking skills to be an effective delegate. This gives participants a unique way of learning how to negotiate their positions they have prepared. Fundamentally, this puts to practice, are you able to work in a group of people in a way that the group of people wants to work with you? ModelUN is very much so a give and take, and students need to be able to work with one another and be pleasant in that time. So, at this point, if we've got you interested and you're wondering where to start, so that way you can offer your students a Model United Nations experience, where they're going to be able to be interactive and really put their classroom skills to the test, go over to our website, MMUN.org. You'll see past background guides and resolutions of what our students have written in the past. You'll also see rules of procedure, delegate handbook, the topic summaries for this year, and so much more. Beyond that, feel free to look at other conferences. See where and why ModelUN is happening throughout the country and throughout the world. ModelUN continues to be an excellent supplement to classroom instruction and really allows for students to get an idea of international politics and policies. If you're still wondering and have more questions, feel free to always contact the Secretary General of Midwest Model United Nations by emailing sg@mmun.org. On top of that, feel free to keep up on our website, where we'll be putting more supplemental material and background guides, both in relation to our topics, as well as how to prepare a Model United Nations team. And feel free to follow us on our social media channels, where we like to share information and updates as well. Thanks so much, and we hope you're going to be going to a ModelUN conference in your future.